Hey everyone, we have an exciting discussion today about the book Pickleball Mindset, the Blueprint for Peak Performance by authors Dayne Gingrich and Jill Martin. And Dayne, if you don't know, is a mental performance and pickleball coach to professional and amateur players and top men's senior pro pickleball player in the world, which is really impressive. He brings a lifelong study of mindset and training to optimize performance on and off the pickleball court. And Jill Martin is an attorney turned personal trainer, yoga teacher, and pickleball fanatic. And I love that path. She's going in the right direction. It just took her maybe a while to figure it out. Having filled her last legal brief, she now uses her knowledge of the body and passion for all things pickleball to help amateur and professional players keep injuries at bay and move better on the court. Please welcome Dayne and Jill. Dayne and Jill, thank you so much both for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's super exciting. Anytime we can talk pickleball and just help, grow. She's already staring at me. It makes me very nervous. I start talking, already staring at me. Anytime we can add value, man, we're just super happy to do so. And thanks for having us today.
Oh, this is great. And
She,
we have a
she doesn't
couple.
have anything she doesn't have anything to say after that. She stares me down and then
I
has
think you
nothing.
said it all. Jill, do you want to say something quick before our first question?
I let him try to take the easy ones so that
Oh
when
yeah,
important questions come up, I can hop in.
yeah. You handle the difficult, important ones. I got it. Oh, good. So first of all, love the book. I bought it and read it as soon as it came out. I coach pickleball, mental skills coach. Everything in there really resonated heavily with me as a coach, a player, and a purpose, and person as well. I'll dive right into chapter 4, and I'll start with Jill. Uh, and there was a great quote in there, and it was, "My confidence needs to be an inside job, a straight up solo act." Can you explain more on this? Because I believe in confidence, but at the same time, not having confidence own you. But can you talk a little bit more about confidence?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the quote about being a solo act, I think, and it's something I still struggle with, but the part that's most challenging for me is often thinking a lot about what other people are thinking about my performance and trying to bench that chorus of critics has been a really important part of my process on the court. And what I noticed, I think that quote kind of comes from when I noticed that even as I was getting better at trying to let go of like the imagined expectations I had of either my partner or people who were watching, that then I slowly, not even consciously, kind of then replaced it with what Dayne, like my coach, would think about my performance and would start to get even nervous, even though all he's ever been a supportive is wanting to kind of play better for him, like that it would be a poor reflection on him as a coach somehow if I didn't play well. And so part of the process for me was really detaching my confidence from what anybody else thought of my performance, and even kind of checking my own expectations of the rate at which I should improve, what I should, oh, I have access to this coach, I should X, I should Y, and kind of just letting myself play the best I could play every day and letting my confidence come from a place of knowing that I'm giving it my all and I'm putting in all the work, and then the result will eventually follow.
I love that. And I love the fact that you said detach the confidence from what other people think or are saying about you. I remember talking to Gigi Fernandez, Dayne probably knows in tennis, 17-time Grand Slam champion. And, she said detach from the outcome. Matter of fact, she made vibration dampeners in her tennis racket that said detach from the outcome, in working with Dr. Jim Lair. I love that you detach it and it's really just what you think of yourself and not what anyone else thinks. And Dana, in that regard, with athletes like Jill and others that you coach, how important is it for you to instill confidence in themselves, and also how do you do it?
So it's, I mean, the confidence chapter, the topic is, it's so deep, right? And I don't think that there's one answer for everybody. And so I think doing this for over 30 years, I started at 19 and now I'm 50. Like just
Now you're 29. You're
yeah, now
29.
I'm 29, 10 years. I think I used to believe that I could instill confidence. But I believe now that my job isn't necessarily to instill confidence, but instead help them lean into what they already do well, which will then, as a byproduct, naturally give them confidence, right? And so by thinking it's my role to give them confidence, I think that's making it about me. It's my ego, et cetera, versus
Mm,
now, saying that, I will never, I'm not the yeller and screamer. I'm not the type of coach that tries to break athletes down by telling them how much they suck and then trying to build them back up from there. So I'm definitely not that coach, but I do strongly believe that we should always start with our superpowers, right? And if you come onto the court and instead of trying to fix what's broken, because that's what they do, right? I don't do this well, I don't do that well. I need to change this, I need to fix this. I never, ever, ever start there because when we do that, that's just that by definition has zero confidence in, right? And so what I believe is starting with their superpowers, what they uniquely do well without me, right? Whether that's I came from a different, especially in pickleball, right? With adults coming in their second chapter of life, right? Very often they have a superpower from some other sport, or in Jill's example, as an attorney, she has so many skills from her other life that she can bring on the pickleball court, right? So I don't think of myself as somebody who tries to instill confidence. I
mm,
believe that I try to instill or try to help them see what they already do well, which will then naturally kind of puff them up and give them confidence. And then we can kind of compound interest, their confidence around that, right? And so again, like I don't believe it's really my job to do that. It is, and I say that, but at the same time, I'm still trying to always make them feel confident, but based on what they already do well themselves, right? It's tricky. It's the kind of the art form of coaching.
Well, and I was just thinking about a conversation that we had last week. I came back from nationals
mm,
and was having some challenging thoughts about my play and my
mm,
performance, and
mm,
was talking to Dayne. And so one of the things that Dayne has told me from the very beginning is that after any tournament, I have to wait a few days before I analyze my performance. And then I
mm,
have to, like, no exceptions, I must find positive things in addition to things that I want to work on. And that can be really hard for me. And my brain doesn't really actually even want to work that way. I tend to want to identify the things that I didn't do well and like really pour myself into, like, after really beating myself up over it, then like, then like going and grinding and working and working and working. And it can be even hard for me to know the things that I did well. And so I've been working on that, but then, changing thought processes and changing the way that we think and work is like it's a slow process. And the second I kind of take my eye away from it, I tend to backslide into my old patterns. And after nationals, I was really wrapped around the axle about, I wasn't happy with how I played. And in terms of how he coaches around confidence, and obviously we've worked together a lot over this.
mm.
But it was interesting. He's uniformly positive with me, but I was almost caught off guard because I was telling him all the things that I was unhappy with about what I had done. And
Mm.
he just said, like, very plainly, like, I'm losing my patience with how you talk to yourself and how you think about yourself. And so I think that that's a way that he's not giving me confidence, but he's helping me recognize I don't even see it happening. And so he's helping, I think, one
Mm.
he does well with many different, like, one of the things, his superpowers is kind of understanding who he works with and what their patterns are, and like what catching them in their patterns and helping them be able to see what he sees, because until you kind of know what you're doing, it's hard to identify it. And so that, I think that that's, he's not saying I believe in you, but he's saying here, it's almost like identifying what are your barriers to believing in yourself.
That's so powerful. And both of you really resonated with it's from the inside out, not outside in. The outside, let's say Coach Dayne influences or shapes or guides the athlete Jill, but Jill, it's on you. And he's just
100%.
getting those negative thoughts which are holding you back out of the way. Yeah, it reminds me of, I always say, no matter how poorly I think I played, whenever I eventually watch the video, it's always better than I thought. Because if I lost, then I assume everything I did was done poorly. And it might not have been that. It might be a let cord. Like we lost a match on a let cord. And then there was like, remember it, like 3 let cords in a row over your paddle, and things like that. And you end up losing. And yeah, so that's really important. And what you said about, I love the rule of letting it process for a few days before you analyze it. Jill, your background of being an attorney, I'm sure that you're awesome at analyzing data. And here you gotta use that superpower, but procrastinate the superpower a couple of days. I go by the 24-hour rule. It's got to be at least 24 hours before you look at it. And I remember I was talking with Carly Lloyd, a former soccer player, and her coach James Galanis, and I asked them that question. I was like, Carly, do you have a 24-hour rule? Do you wait? And she said, well, it all depends on how I'm feeling and what the result was. Usually I need longer to accept feedback on a tough loss. But if it's a win or a loss that wasn't that tough, then I could accept it quicker. And her coach, James, said, I usually wait 24 hours. So, yeah, that's really impactful.
Angelo, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just think it's just piggybacking on the negative versus positive. I think elite athletes, if you talk to the Kobe's or the Jordans or the Tiger Woods or just name them, right? They instinctively believe like I want to eliminate all of my weaknesses, right? So their mentality is just like, I want to destroy all the weaknesses. And I don't want to, but I think it's so important. We're kind of inundated with all the negative and why we don't do well and why this is messed up and this is messed up. And yes, we need to clean up those things that are challenges, that are leaks in our game, right? But I think it's just so important that we spend more time on superpowers, right? It doesn't mean ignore the challenges, but everybody's got it flipped, right? And I'm just a huge believer. And if you go down and you watch the Kobe's or the Jordans or the Tiger Woods, they didn't win their matches or tournaments or championships based on the things that they cleaned up. The things that they cleaned up gave them a shot, gave them a chance, right? But they won their championships on the back of their superpowers, whatever those things are. And so I think most athletes have it flipped. And they're spending 70-80% of the time on what they don't do well, and they're ignoring the things that naturally, uniquely are their gifts. And I just think their gifts need to be accented and accelerated mentally, right? Not ignoring the challenges. We got to get to those, but like we got to lean into what we do really well, because at 9-9 in the third on the pickleball court, we are going to do what we do best, the end, right? And so let's make what we do best better.
I love that. Love that. And I remember reading that Roger Federer doesn't believe in weakness improvement.
Right.
He believes in weapon development. Yes, of course, when he got Stefan Edberg as a coach, he worked on attacking his back end more, and then attacking the return of serve. But for the most part, he made his forehand and his tactics and his serve, the best he could possibly be, and that won him matches. I completely agree with that, and you're right. Even me, I sometimes, I get a backhand and hey, run around and hit your forehand. If you can do it, why try to prove that your weakness is not that weak?
That's right. If you look at Tiger Woods, right? Tiger Woods' demise, outside of all of his off-course stuff,
yes,
his demise was trying to overwork his swing. He had the perfect swing. He was dominated, and he worked it spun him, right? I can make this better. I got to make this better. And ultimately it made everything worse, right? And then he spun, which then then we know what happened off the course stuff. But like if he would have just stuck to his 2000 swing, right? The one Adam Scott copied literally by every inch and every angle. Tiger had something that Adam didn't have, that mental, that thing. If he could have just stayed there and just loved that part of his game rather than trying to like squeeze every, like we probably would have broken, the Grand Slam, the major record. He would have broken Jack's record if he would have just stayed there. So
it's almost like the what you say there is the difference between striving for excellence versus perfection. What he had was excellent. Why try to be perfect?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I always say to perfect is perfection is an opinion. It's
Yeah.
someone's opinion. It's
Yeah.
really not fact. So why are you chasing an opinion? There's going to be different opinions of what's perfect. So just be your own perfect in an imperfect way.
Love it.
I'll
Yeah,
I'll
I
go
know
with
you
the
had a
next
couple questions.
question. Yes, from this weekend. So we played a tournament, and it reminded me of the 10x chapter when you're serving at 10x. So Dayne, this question is for you. We were up 10-9, no ad scoring, so win by one on the one. And you talk about playing your superpower. I'd like to think my serve is my superpower.
Yeah.
And I played it safe. Like I was, and I tried to deconstruct per your teachings, like why did I do that? And I was afraid. I was afraid of missing. And we ended up losing 11-10 on that let court Angelo mentioned. We should have won. So you also, talk about the, ability to take a timeout, about playing with what got you there. But we had no timeouts left. So what would you in that moment, in the moment of the ball coming over, what would either you tell your partner or yourself in that moment to actually go for it and overcome that fear?
So the first thing I would have said is I would have blamed my partner for all mistakes. That's just really, it's your partner's fault. That's number one. I would have told him not to screw up. I mean, I practiced that all. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, this is super common, right? Right? And Angela, like the brain goes into protection mode, right? You're up and you're trying not to lose. And what happens because the brain is trying to protect from pain. So don't miss the serve because I don't want you to feel the pain yet. Then you miss the serve or you hit a weak serve so that's what you experience is completely normal. So to answer your question, number one, you said it, right? Like do what got you there. But I'm a big believer, like if you're serving, and one of my biggest pet peeves, especially in big moments, right? The hinge moments where it's time to either separate or close out a match. Like I'm just a huge believer in coming together as a team to say something, paddle tap, keep swinging, stay aggressive, whatever. So I think definitely up 10-9, 10-9-1 in a sudden death match, I would have 100% come to you and just given you the freedom to swing, right? I wouldn't have mentioned anything about swing. I don't care if you miss. I would never mention a miss, but like, hey, stay aggressive, keep swinging. It's your superpower. Let's go. Just to free you up, right? But if your partner doesn't do that or didn't do that, then that's something that you need to continue to work on and telling yourself, right? And it's, people ask all the time, how do I get better at X? Right? And it's, how do you get stronger? And like, she doesn't just bring me into her gym here and just have me look at the equipment, right? You got to rep, right? You can't read about push-ups. You got to do push-ups. You can't read about being aggressive or think to be aggressive. You have to be aggressive in those moments to rep the mentality that allows you to continue being aggressive in those moments. So for me, it's super simple. It's just not easy, right? Because you have that fight, and she's going to come with a better answer because she always does. But you have that tug of war in your brain all the time, right? You know what your superpower is. You know that you should be aggressive with your serve, but then you have this other thing on the other shoulder saying, yeah, but don't miss. We can't. So just like with anything that we do, we need to rep it enough to where you override that fear voice and just tell yourself over and over, not just in that match. Because if you haven't done it up to that point, nothing's going to change in that point, right? And so it's drilling, it's rec, it's hitting balls by yourself, like making some type of drill that makes you feel stressed just drilling your serve, right? And so you can keep repping the fear voice that comes and just remind yourself, swing out, baby. This is what I do. This is what I love. And something I say all the time to my partner too in those big moments. This is why we play. Like instead of, because our brain, if we don't override it with something, it is going to default to the fear. Don't screw it up. So this is why we play. Keep swinging. I love it. I love you. Like keep going. Like whatever that thing is, that resonates with you and your partner, you just got to rep that voice. Win or lose, like if you swung out and you missed your serve, it's the equivalent of hitting a really good putt or going for a big backhand and missing. As long as the intention is what we want, and in those moments, the intention should always be to lean into what you do well, and hopefully it's something aggressive, right? So if you say be aggressive, if your partner says swing out and go and you miss it, it's still good. That's still a win, right? Versus puff, even if you would have won the game with a pumped serve and something, you still would have felt bad, guilty. You still would have, yeah, but I didn't unleash it. So we're still dealing with the same issue, whether you won or lost, right?
Love
So
That's a
that.
great
Love
answer.
that. I call that happy, not satisfied. Is if
yeah,
you don't go for it and get away with winning, you're happy that you won, but you're not satisfied because you didn't do your best. I would rather he, me do our best, and whatever it is whatever it is. I whispered to him a few times, "Go for your serve." I don't remember if I did on that at that moment, but I think the challenge was, like Dayne said, you had been doing that deep but safe serve the whole time. So it's hard to all of a sudden do something different when it's 10-9.
right.
And so that's the hard one. We got then the tougher return. I overplayed it.
It
It's
was your
downhill from
fault.
there.
It was it was your
Thing
fault.
was,
But it was
he
my
said,
fault. I think I missed my forehand at when I took your ball
well,
out.
yeah, I think your words were serve smart. And I interpret that as, okay, so what does that mean? Safe,
Oh,
high percentage? But I'm not blaming him. I didn't have the fortitude to do it. I'd love to ask a follow-up question for Jill, right? Since, um,
Wait,
from
can
a
I
player,
pause for a second?
of course we can.
So what would you want him to say? Given that presumably you're going to play together again, what would be helpful for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. It would, it would be probably go for your serve because that gives me permission to
to miss.
miss with without remorse or regret, or like you said, Dane, without the guilt later that you didn't go for it. That's what I think. Go for it. Go for
So,
your serve.
the word that strikes me, and you did nothing wrong by saying serve smart, but that's just code for don't screw it up, dude. Don't be that's code for don't be dumb, right? And so you didn't do it on purpose, but we do it all the time as partners. We're trying to help, but not understanding the psychology behind certain words that they will then turn it into like their own internal demons, right? Like if you're afraid of making that mistake. If you tell me to be smart, I'm going to say, oh, she doesn't want me to be dumb. Right. And so, but that's the beauty of this whole partnership thing. We're not playing singles. So it's not just good enough for me to know my psychology and what makes me, it's actually not even the most important thing. The most important thing is for us, for her to know my triggers and how I want to be talked to and how I know she wants to be talked to. She talks about it all the time when we travel for our book tour clinics. She speaks to to the players about how do you want to be spoken to, right? Not how I want to speak to you, or I want to know how you want to be spoken to. And I think in those moments, if you would have known that, the whole thing would have changed. So really, like it really was your fault, Angela. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And what?
my
Yeah.
fault. Good.
I think about it a lot about having these conversations. One of the things, especially if you guys are always going to be partners or partner frequently together, is my partner and I at nationals. He's like this amazing guy, and he's super supportive of me. He's very process oriented. He doesn't get mad when I make mistakes. And he was saying something with the full intention of being supportive of me and helping me in those moments. For personal reasons, for me, it didn't feel helpful. It kind of made me have the opposite reaction. And so then I think that is my job to tell him ahead of, like, if you see these things happening, like things that are really helpful for me are like X or Y. It's kind of my job. It's my job to explain what I need to, and especially because he's such a great guy. He actually, after nationals, wrote me this really great text that was like, let's take 5 or 6 days and then let's have a conversation, and you let me know how are ways that I can, through both shot selection and the words I use, take pressure off of you. And I was like, wow, like that's pretty incredible. But so then the ball's then in my court, is I have to identify, it's not his job to understand my personal psychology. So then it's my job to say, like, if you see me starting to, if you're trying to boost me up, say X, or like, this is helpful. So I just think that it's almost like any relationship. You just have to kind of almost over communicate before you're on the court. Once you're in the hot seat, like, you can't sort these things out. So it's good to kind of have a game plan, I think, beforehand.
I
That's
love
awesome.
that. I love that. And I'm gonna be ready. And at the end, I want to mention it. But your pickleball mindset certification course. I need that. I need that. I'm like a
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And
Yes,
we're
just
like,
don't
we
tell
better
him.
come up with a program.
Yes, yes, yeah, yes. Thank you. I appreciate. Just don't tell anyone it's made especially for me. And it's funny. This is all I do is coach pickleball mental skills, but I'm like a sponge. I'm like both of you. I feel like I can always do better for the players I play with, or the players I coach. I need to do better for them. And yeah, that was yeah, just very, very powerful. I love what you said. What words does he want to hear? Not that I want to say, that he
Right.
wants to hear, and how is he going to take that?
Right.
And you're right, Ed. I think I said smart and not go for it. I think I said go for it when we were down earlier, and then I said smart there.
Isn't
Yeah.
that interesting though? Like when we're down, it's easy because we have nothing to lose. When we're up, now we have something to lose. So hey, let's be a little bit
Yeah,
more passive. Let's be a little more
yeah,
calm. Like, and I think being able to override that, that's what the greatest athletes in the world have learned, how to do.
absolutely.
Angelo, I had a follow-up question on that
Yeah,
note
yeah.
for Jill. Jill, you talk about the externalities of, let's say, friends, family, and fans, and how you sort of block those out and be present, sort of that um, blurry peripheral vision. You talk about head down, eyes closed, and so forth. From the actual, let's call it woman in the arena, how have you been able to do that? Like, for example, were you able to do that at nationals? Because that was one of the things I failed at this weekend.
So I think that's a really good question. And I really think I'm a work in progress. So it's helpful. It's one of the things that's really helpful to have kind of a coach, somebody who's worked with me over a long period of time, is I think with mental performance, it's really amorphous to judge your progress. It's a really hard thing to be able to see, have I gotten better at these things? And having somebody who's looking from the outside has been helpful. So for me, when I was at nationals, I think that I came home and I felt disappointed in myself I started off very, very tight, and I was really nervous, and I just didn't feel like I was playing with myself. It took me a long time to land. And a lot was kind of going on in my head at that time. I was worried about letting down my partner, kind of, they had at nationals, every court was streamed. And since the book, oftentimes somebody will come up to me after we've played and been like, I read your book. First of all, not like I think everybody knows that I've written this book or whatever, but there's part of me that feels that I should be better at this than I am, because people will make jokes and they mean them totally as jokes, saying to me like, oh, well, I think there's a book about that. Like if I'm struggling with an issue. And so it's helpful for me to remember through Dayne sometimes, because he has a better recollection, objective recollection of my progress, that I have gotten better at these things, because it's often easy just to see how much further I have to go. So some of your question is, how do I do that? Well, I still struggle with it. And then when it's happening, I have a few tricks, like a few physical tricks that Dayne has taught me. You know, like he taught me a couple breathing things that I do that when I'm noticing I'm nervous, I kind of go back to these. That helps me land. I kind of exhale through a shot, like that will help me. And then I think the biggest thing that I've taken from him, which actually gives me calm, is that tournament like pressure. I mean, there's no such thing as pressure, but like tournament, the stress of competition, that is a muscle like any other. And I cannot think, no matter how much you try to replicate it in games or in like in rec games or in drilling, you cannot really replicate what it's like to play in a tournament unless you're in a tournament. And so when I try to give myself grace, I think like I haven't played in that, you know, in a lifetime, I haven't played in that many tournaments. And each one I'm getting a little bit better at. It's like a muscle that builds very, very, very slowly. And then if you neglect the muscle, it's just like a muscle. It atrophies. And so for me, part of it is remembering in those moments to be patient with myself. And like I'm moving the needle forward slowly, maybe not as fast as I would like, but the work is taking me in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that. And Dayne, to you, I know I read one of your posts on your on Facebook recently. After you wrote the book, there's that additional pressure of everyone says he's the pickleball mindset guru. So therefore, when he plays, he better not get angry or whatever. And
Right.
and you had a can you talk to us a little bit about what you wrote there? Because I thought that I feel that same pressure in a similar way. I wrote a book a few years ago, Tenacity, the Tenacious Mindset on and off the court. It was mainly for tennis, but its mindset is applicable to all sports. So that's the thing. When I play doubles, pickleball doubles with other people, you know, then if something's going wrong and I'm not on my best behavior, it's like, hey, remember what you say to other people. Yeah, but I'm the hardest to coach myself.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. It's really interesting you said that because as we were writing the book and as it was about to be published, Jill and I had a little back and forth about all the critics that would come specifically her way, or we're just talking, just the trolls that would mention the negative stuff, like, oh, we didn't like your book, or oh, whatever the stuff was, right? And I never for a, but I always said, like, A, if that happens, it's going to be very few people. B, those people are unhappy, so just let them aside. But I really think because reading, before it was published, she sent me the first chapter. I'm like, this is a home run. Like, this is just unbelievable. So never in our back and forth did I ever even conceive of the stress I would feel about having to live up to what was written in the book. All right. Because we didn't write the book for that. And we had no idea that it would take off the way it did. We had no idea that people would be messaging and talking about the value that it's added. And I remember, you know, I was holding it in the entire time didn't really mention it publicly except to Jill and my wife, my family, about how much this is weighing on me. I feel like I have to be perfect all the time. I feel like I can't make a single mistake emotionally or mentally, because then it's what she said. Yeah, but you wrote a book, so you're supposed to be a master. And I just believe like there's no such thing as mastering it. You just continually get better at it. Am I better than I was at 21 when I was jumping the tennis net and fighting opponents? Yeah, like I'm way better at that. I've only done that once at pickleball. That's
Only
better
once.
than 10 times. And my partner had to pull me back. She was like, "You're not fighting."
Was that video that just went viral? No.
The guy kicking him in the chin.
That was pretty bad.
That was bad. That's
Okay.
the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And
And
for
so
the record, that was not Dayne. Just for the
that would
record.
not be for the record.
That was not Dayne.
Not me. I have my attorney here just in case. And I think there are certain people on the senior pro tour who will weaponize it against me for sure if I slip up, and they have, and they've tried to dig at me. But it's something, it's a mental skill that I never thought I would actually have to work on, which again is like, we wrote this book, but like the mental performance is so vast, and we could write 30,000 more books on it. And I don't think you ever master it. I mean, there's a reason why I can't coach myself. I have to have a coach. If she's at the tournament that I'm playing at, she's the only one that I will allow coach me, because she knows me inside and out. And I have and she's my physical trainer, as you can tell. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. She's, but she's also become, along with my awesome, beautiful wife at home, has also, they both are my mental performance coaches too, because my wife knows me at a totally different level, and Jill knows me at a pickleball level that can only be known when you play. And so, yes, we wrote a book, but man, it is difficult to try to live up to it. And I just thought when I posted that, I just was like purging and making, every time I write something, it might say me or I am, but what I've learned is that there are people sitting in a corner of their room thinking they're the only person dealing with certain challenges, right? And so my goal isn't this narcissistic thing. It's to write, when I write I or I'm battling through, it's to tap into somebody else who's also feeling the same thing. And I think there are a ton of people out there going through certain stresses that they only think they're going through, whether people are judging them or hating on them or doubting them or trolling them, social media, right? And so me coming out was my way of saying, dude, I'm doing it. I'm dealing with this too. And every tournament I go, I settled for bronze at nationals, right? Which is so sad to not be able to celebrate a podium win. But that, the book is part of it. Like, I should win every event because I believe I'm the mentally strongest player on tour. And I don't even think it's close. That's just me. I'm not saying that's fact, but
Yeah.
that's the stress I put on myself. So, long story longer, as one of our friends say, yeah, I feel that all the time. And I don't know that it goes away. I think the more success you have, I just think it's just kind of like price of admission, right?
Yeah, I came up with this acronym, EAGLES, focus on your EAGLES, which are your effort, attitude, gratitude, learning, enjoyment, sportsmanship, and the silent F, focus on playing freely.
Right.
And because I bought this Nikon camera a couple years ago, my first real camera, and there's a bald eagle's nest near our home. So when I drop off my son Andy at school, I go take pictures. And so, anyways, those are controllables, and none of that says winning or outcome. I believe that if you focus on those seven things, that then you may win more frequently. And so, anyways, the thing there I learned was that other people, when I played this, when I get frustrated, they go, "Well, focus on your egos, Ange." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I know, I'm trying, but they expect me to be perfect.
Right. You need that outside. You need that unemotional. You need that person that's, looking from the outside to help. Michael Jordan arguably is the best of all times, and he had his guy. Kobe had every Tiger had his guy. They all they all have their guy. You can't coach yourself.
Yeah,
It's just not possible because she reminds me all the time because I live on I'm coming with emotion, and she's like, "Don't you dare say that. You can't you can't post that. You can't write. Nope. You have to be like, nope. Like, sit, chill. Like, write it. Let me look at it. Like, give it to your wife. Let her look at it. But you cannot, because we can't see ourselves from here, right? We need somebody from the outside helping.
You
love
can tell
that.
what a busy woman I am.
Yeah, yeah. And my brother is busy too. He's definitely my coach. I don't know if you realize that or not, but what Dane just said, like I'm like the Dane and you're like the Jill. I mean, I'm just saying.
You
Yeah,
look,
no, it's
you look similar. You guys look.
Yeah.
no, it's the sort of the blind spot you mentioned there. So then a follow-up question, two, one about sort of anger management, negative emotions like being mad at yourself or your partner or your opponents, or then even the opponent's fans. How it's so hard for the mind to get ahead of that negative emotion. How have you both been able to cope with that?
You are so angry. You probably should answer this.
Well, one of the things, so the negative emotion, I think part of the trap that a lot of us fall into when we're being, particularly when it's self-directed, when you're mad at yourself, is, at least for me, I think that there's a fallacy that if I'm really angry about something that I've done, that I'll focus on it more and then I'll do better at it. Like that there's some idea that that's going to propel us forward. And one, I think that's not, at least for most people, particularly true. But then what for me more than that became more persuasive to really work on managing my energy when I was upset with myself is how that affects my partner. And you really only have to watch pickleball, like go to a tournament and watch and see how one partner's energy can just pull the other one like down the toilet, and to realize that even if it works for you to beat yourself up and throw your hands and scream at yourself, like it probably isn't working for your partnership unless you have a very unique partner. And so I like to try to remember that it's like an obligation that I have to my partner. It's not just like whatever's working for me, but it's kind of, I have to, as a whole, if I go down the toilet and get angry and get distracted, that's going to not just affect my play, but our whole partnership. So for me, that helps me to try to kind of connect it to an obligation beyond myself.
I love that.
I tend, I don't care if you, do you want to care? You care what I say? I mean, usually I don't like to follow her. It's usually I like to go and then she comes. Following her is not fun. She's a lot smarter. I tend to approach it a little differently. I 100% agree that your energy affects your partner. But what the challenge I have, and maybe it's my eyebrows, I don't know what it is. I come with this really serious, I'm not a smiley, laughy, giggly player. I've tried and I don't play well. I'm a lot better when I'm super serious. That sometimes brings a scowl. And so what I've learned to do is tell my partners way ahead of time that when I go into that shell, when I look like I'm angry, when I look like I'm frustrated, it is a me thing. It's my trigger. It has nothing to do with you. Promise, right? And so, listen, we're human beings, so we're going to be upset, and I think it's okay to be upset. Tiger Woods had a 10-step rule. He would, for 10 steps, he could be as angry as he wanted, and on the 11th step, it was gone. Pickleball, we are so close. There's no way. We're human beings. So I think it's okay to feel upset, to feel disappointed, as long as our partners know that it is not directed or we're not mad. Like you missed a dink, of course we're like, oh, bummer, but it's not a personal, not upset with you. I don't think you're a terrible dinker. So I think, again, over communicating beforehand is really important, because I've had partners later tell me they thought I was mad at them when I'm just very naturally intense, scowl on my face all the time. Players don't think I'm having fun, but that is my fun. Like that is how I have fun. The more serious and focused that I am, the more fun that I have. That puzzle is fun. So as far as the partnership thing, I tell them ahead of time that when this happens, I promise it's not towards you. And then I've had to really work hard, especially in mixed. I was a terrible mixed partner energetically. When I first started, playing with Lauren Stratman, we would watch video. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not know I looked like that. And so I think with mixed, because it's such a different dynamic, I think that has like, I'm not allowed to be scally and mixed very often because it really does make her feel like I am judging her, because so many dudes do, right? If we're being honest, really, guys can be a-holes to their female partner. So I think I've really worked hard on trying not to do that. And I will tell Jen, or I will tell my partner, but I promise it's not towards you. Towards my opponents or my opponents' fans, when they get angry or they're talking trash, oh my gosh, that's my favorite thing ever, right? I think I play really well when there's some type of something happening on the court, whether I'm being heckled or my opponent is pumping fists or we have some type of off-court thing that we're bringing on the court. I love that. And not many people do, some don't, but the angrier they are, the more trash talking their fans are, the better I play. So for me, that doesn't bother me at all. For other people, they can't stand it. And so I know if I know that it bothers you, for me to like come at you with like I'm coming at you, right? So I think it's mental weakness, in my opinion, to have anything bother you, right? To have any opponent bother you, to have any opponent's fans bother you. So I've just decided to flip it. If you're gonna talk trash, it's on. Like I absolutely love that.
That's
Oh
amazing.
yeah.
I mean, both your answers were first. Thank you.
Mine was better.
I think no, I think they were perfect. Angelo is the scowler for sure. He plays best, and we even talked about that afterwards. And but for me, I'm a little bit like, I think you called yourself a goofball, Jill, and that's what I am. I try to hit a tweener, for example, in match play, and how many, and what is my ratio, and crazy shots like that. But that's my fun and my enjoyment. So yeah, I know. He's super. He hates when I do it. So sorry. All right, Angelo, I have one more question.
Well, I just have to just go off script for a
So if you
minute.
call, yeah, go ahead. Go off script. Go ahead.
Let me just say, so when I read the book, first of all, Dayne, your passion just about everything is just comes through. It's not anger. It's the scowl is that you're so passionate about it it's evident. I love that part. And then Jill, I loved how Jill, you would challenge out loud or in your mind everything that Dayne would coach you. And
Everything.
but what I love is, and then she comes back with these sarcastic, witty, humorous things of basically that she had to go kind of test it out herself, not fully believing you, but kind of trusting you, but not believing you and doing it. And then eventually seeing the result and then saying, okay, yeah,
You're right. Say
he
it.
was
Say
right.
it.
He was right.
Say it.
She might not say that, but it came through. And I don't know, for me, that made the book so entertaining because it was like this dink rally back and
Yeah.
forth and back, one perspective and then the other, the coach versus the player and student. And that I think is what makes for me the book so much more than just the title.
Yeah.
Um it was humorous and it was real. I mean, and the word genuine comes to mind. And the one thing I wanted to say then was it is after you wrote it and published it, was there one thing, and I'll go to Jill and then Dayne, was there one thing that said, oh, I should have put this, or that you might put it in the next book, not to spoil the next or not to spoil the course, but yeah, Jill and then you, Dayne.
Oh, something else that we would put in. Well,
I think she would want to take it out. Like, God,
Or
Dayne.
take out.
well, maybe a different way for me to look at it is when we've gone on these book tour clinics and the clinic is on the court. So we're teaching a clinic and interacting with everybody around the mindset pieces. And so I'm like a data person and I'm always kind of keeping track of what are people asking questions about. And to me, that gives me really good insight about like where we needed to say more, because across the board, every single clinic we've done, mostly people have questions about partnership in different dimensions on how to.
Hint, hint. Part 2.
Oh,
And
a sneak peek. I love it.
yeah, so it's clearly, and I think partnerships on the pickleball court are unique. It's such a small space, and then it's really different between gendered and mixed, and there's the social aspect of pickleball, which I think adds complexity sometimes to the partnerships. So that I feel like that there was more to explore there, and which is great though. It's great to have an opportunity and it's something that I'm super interested in, because pickleball for me, I mean, I love this sport, but for me, pickleball has always been most interesting. The mental part of it, both understanding myself, understanding other people. That's what fascinates me, and partnerships of all variety, I think, is like where it kind of the meat of human existence is. So that excites me to look at that more.
Love that.
Yeah. So I'll never forget the first, I mentioned it a little earlier, but the first time we were going back and forth about the book, and I knew, and I've said this from literally our first meeting, this book, because I did a podcast a long time ago that was really, really successful, that wasn't because of myself or my co-host. It was because the podcast was about people coming on, sharing their vulnerabilities. And again, sharing the struggles, not the success stories. Everybody's in front of a Lamborghini that's not even theirs that they're taking a picture of and saying like they're blowing up their success stories, but rarely anybody will talk about their struggles and their pain and their lowest moments. So our podcast was about our lowest moments, and then we would bring on guests that only could talk about their struggle. In the last 3 to 5 minutes, they could talk about their success and how good their business is or the athlete, right? And that thing blew up because people were like, oh my gosh, them too. Like they really gravitated towards the struggle aspect. So when she sent me her first draft of her part, like just half of a chapter, I may have fallen out of my chair. I could not believe how good her part was. So if to answer your question, if we were to add, like if I were to add more, I always like to read her part more than mine. As mine is pretty much like I'm not in reinventing the wheel. I'm giving my story on top of the things that we already know. You know, Tim Galloway, and like mental game is mental game. There's nothing really new. It's can we spin it to kind of tap into our own audience. But her part of the book is why the book is so successful. I've said it from day one and I'll say it forever. If it was just my part, it'd be a good book. It'd be fine. I think we'd sold some copies. But because of her, it really tapped into the audience at hand. And so if we were to add something more, I would just like to hear her more of her story, more of her vulnerabilities, more of her struggles. I really think she held back a little bit because she was insecure about, I mean, she always said it, nobody's going to want to read my part. Nobody cares about my part. And I kept saying, you couldn't be more wrong. It's because of your part that this book is going to do well. And so she's an amazing writer, and when she wrote her part about her vulnerabilities, I just could not believe how good it was. So I would add more of that.
I have to give him an extra 10% now of what we make.
Yeah, now I'm up to 15%. Great.
Renegotiate the royalties. That's wonderful. I think it's such a dynamic duo you have of um, player, coach, player, student. You know, everybody who has coached at one point is a player. And that's why I think Jill's perspective is so relatable for everyone because everyone has had that internal struggle to get to where they are. I've got a question for Dayne to lead off, and
That's
Jill,
right.
feel free to weigh in. But Dayne, this I think is more to the way you approach the game with rank and scores, and or at least used to with the outcome. Obviously, there was a evolution in your own mindset. Can you playing for the W, in other words, playing for the gold, playing for the podium? By the way, we also got bronze this weekend. It was the most like sad, thing you can imagine. You're on the podium. So what is that? It's so selfish in retrospect. That being said,
Well, also because there's no come around, and that also screws with your head. You believe because there's no come around that you have to be perfect. And you know, pickleball, first to 11. I mean, anybody can beat anybody, and so you have to be perfect, which adds another. And when you do lose, you know there's not another chance to come back. I think the beautiful thing about the come around is that cream will always rise to the top. Doesn't mean we would have won, but the winner then knows definitely we're the best in the tournament, right? And so I think that adds to the stress of the bronze because you didn't have a chance to come around and really go at it again.
yeah. Related to that, how do you play with rankings, duper rankings specifically? If you're not playing for the double and the gold, that's even worse. It's like sort of the quantitative trap we all fall into with social media of quantitatively the likes, the quantitative number of following because you can see the number and then you overly focus on the number. And and Angelo mentioned this to me, it's a direct antithesis to focusing on process because it is a numeric rank
Right.
and it's a compare against yourself. How do you deal with duper?
So I don't. Like the
Okay.
quickest answer is I literally never look. I don't look. I don't care about it. Think that like she's gonna kill me. Like, don't piss off Duper. I just think the algorithm is so. I just don't think you can have first off a men's, a gender and a mixed and a singles rank. I think that's absolutely insane to have. Just take away the singles. I don't play singles. To have like one rating based on men's and mixed is insanity to me. It's like having a football ranking and a baseball rating. They're completely different sports. I think that's asinine. Well, I'm gonna get in trouble. So I never think about Duper ever, ever, ever because it is highly inaccurate. It's insane. That being said, the wins. So I have something happening at the very same time. I have the reason I train. Number one, I love the training, but the reason I train is I have certain really macro long-term goals that I'm going for, right? Like big time senior pro,
Yep.
big time goals that I'm going for. So I am trying to win every single tournament, gold in every single men's and mixed that I play. That's happening at the very same time. I come down into this little micro. We're in her gym, every little core workout, every lunge she puts me through. So I'm living in both of those worlds at the same time. The second I step onto the court, though, it is about this point, right? And I just train, I've been competing since I was 5 in tennis, 6 in tennis at a high level and in basketball as well. So again, it's just repping it, just constantly repping, keeping your head, keeping your mind the one very singular point. But at the same time, I think we would be lying if we didn't say we had the W pulling us, right? I have those goals pulling me, but I know in order to get to those goals, I got to master this point. And so you constantly have this tug of war, which is not easy. And I do get sucked into, I did at nationals, if I'm just being totally vulnerable, I did at nationals when it was close and I to come around and I had a moment in literally in between points after I missed a shot or my partner, I can't remember the exact, but we were up and then we were on a downswing and I remember having the thought, if we don't win this, we can't win gold. And then I had to literally shake it and get back into my own personal mantra about this point, stay aggressive. I think I even went over to Althoff and said something to him just to get that out of my head because they can't coexist. So this is the thing too. We have a choice. We can either think about the win or we can think about this point and what we need to do in this point, the intention behind this point, but we can't do both at the same time. So if we don't do anything with the process-based focus, we will only focus on wins and losses, right? Because that's the default. And so our job is to overwork this point, overwork this intention, overwork, nice try, keep swinging, let's go. Overwork that so that it just gets bigger than the W. But it's been, like I said, I'm in my 50s and I've been doing this since I was 6, literally, and I still don't have it. Those thoughts will still creep, always creep. They always come, but they don't stay as long because I've repped it. I've gone to the gym and I've done a bunch of push-ups and I've repped it, right? And so when people come and say, I'm struggling with this and I don't know how long have you been? Well, I've been doing it for 3 weeks. Like I should have, well, we just need more reps, right? So duper, I don't ever look, I don't ever believe. I have nobody tells me I don't care what my duper is. And the wins and losses and the process is happening simultaneously. It's not easy.
I love that.
I love that they
love
both can't coexist. That is the first time I've heard that before. That they both focusing on the point and the win cannot coexist in your brain. That it is an epiphany for me, and thank you for sharing that. Angelo,
But you have to be like,
yeah,
you have to be hyper focused on the intention at hand for that statement to be true. Because if you're just kind of saying, because you can say hit it to him, but I hope I don't miss. Like you can live in that moment if you're not like highly intensely focused on the thing. Because but again, like I say, it just takes so much work, right? And it's freaking exhausting.
it's so funny. So wow, I absolutely love that. Goals you write down, you put in your journal, you put under your pillow, and you look at them later. But you don't think about your goal while you're playing because you're future thinking, you're not present. And the funny thing is, your fans, your friends, your family, all the people that know you, when you walk off the court, they mean well, but they ask the most dangerous question ever. How did you do?
Yep.
And so then a friend that I know in the pickleball circles, I don't know, remember it? We came off the court after our first 2 losses, and he had no idea we won, lost, whatever. And he goes, "How did you guys do?" And I go, we had fun. And he goes, "Oh," and he goes, "Oh, great." And he has to follow up with, "And did you win?" I
Yeah, of
go,
course.
I said, check the draw.
Yeah. Yeah. You're pissed. Yeah.
Oh man, it's
It's
like because
tough.
they bring you right to the result when you're not trying to go to the result with your mind. They mean well though.
I think that also, like in terms of duper specifically, I think it's a little different for Dayne than it is for amateur players, because amateur players, depending, I guess it's probably different in everywhere you live, but there are opportunities, there are things that you can play in or that you're invited to play in based on your duper. And so for me, the challenge, like I wanted to be super honest about it because I try really hard not to care about my duper. And I remember once somebody wrote all of the women in our town, like their dupers. And it was actually really helpful for me to see because I know how they play. And the dupers were if you had ranked them by dupers, it would just have been a really inaccurate kind of assessment of whatever their skill was. So that was helpful for me to like really see this number is not particularly helpful at knowing somebody's skill level. So I try not to put anything into it, but then at the same time, I know like I had an interaction with somebody at an event and he was saying that he was looking for a partner. And the first question he asked me, he's like, well, what's your duper? And I thought, my duper at this moment's maybe I think kind of reflective of where I'm at. But a month before I had done an event and my duper, it had tanked my duper, and if I think about, so I think it's really, really complicated. And I see, there's like a couple duper ladder events here that they're all men and I could go and play them. And because it's all men and there's some younger men, it would be really good competition for me. And I would end up with like a zero duper, like I would just, and so I don't even like that I'm thinking about that. Like I want to get to a point where I don't care about what the number is and I'm going to choose my playing opportunities based on how I'm going to be as a player and not about this number that I'm going to have. But I think that that's a really tough. I think that's tough as an amateur, depending on like whether your opportunities are being kind of segmented by your duper.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You have more opportunities to play as a coach. People look. I'm sure look at maybe they look at my duper saying, "Oh, which coach has the highest duper," kind of thing. And I think going back to what Dayne said, but if you really focus 100% on being present on what you're going to do on that shot, everything else will take care of itself because you're the best that you can in that moment. I have to tell that exact phrase to myself more often because I'm the toughest person on myself than anyone else.
It's totally normal though. We grow up and like in first grade, did you get an A, B, or C? Like, I mean, everything is based and judged on a result. We are brought up to only focus on results. College coaches, professional coaches are getting fired because of their record, their result. Like, we're just inundated with wins, wins, wins. Like you're a high school athlete getting recruited for college. It's not how hard you're working in the gym. It's your point average. I mean, it is just constantly on us. So of course that's where our brain takes us, right? Which is another passion, which has really kind of spurred this passion, back a long time ago to help with this mental piece, right? Like, yes, it is a reality. Like grades in school are a reality. Your wins and losses are a reality, but they are 100% out of your control. I know a lot of people that have studied their butt. I was one, well, I didn't study, but there are a lot of people that study their butt off that don't get A's. And I know a ton of people who don't study at all that get all A's. And so, the grade's out of our control. The win-loss record is out of our control. It's what we do inside the hub. It's what we do in the dark when no one's looking. That's 100% in our control. So it's this, but then I say that and you will inevitably get a, yeah, but the result, yeah, but, and you're right too. So it's not whether the duper is important or not important, or the record is important or not, it's important. It's what can I do right now to maximize my controllables in this moment, the end, right? And then if you really do believe that everything will take care of itself, it adds a little piece to it. I know that if I don't work with her, I'm done. Like I just know that my senior pro career is over. I know that. So I don't love it. I said earlier before we were working out before we came on, I said, I don't want to this morning. And she just said, I don't care. Like, go. Like, literally, I don't care. Go. Right. And so I know that that's part of the process that I want the result. I want the results thing. So I got to freaking be in pain for 2 hours, 18 days a week with this.
Love that.
That is awesome. a question about in the book you mentioned visualization between when you were injured for 4 months between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Are you a Gary Vee fan? In other words,
Oh yeah, I love.
were you
Oh yeah,
inspired by Crush It? Because I
I
that
love.
time block was very coincidental, if not serendipitous.
Yeah, I love Gary. I don't know that I did the time because of Gary. I did that time because my daughter's in gymnastics. She gets home at 9:30 every night. My wife, I come home from work. It's like at night between, about 10:30, 11, everybody goes to sleep. So if I want to do that film study or if I want to do my visualization work, it has to be at that time. I'm not going to do it at 8 o'clock at night during dinner. Right. And so A, I love Gary, but B, I'm a night person too. So I really find that peace and I have routines in that at about 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11. I just feel like the house is quiet, it's dark. I got Ben Johns on, or I'm going through my own visualization, right? I mean, I could do that all night. That when I come to her house early in the morning and I'm exhausted, did you sleep? You might want to sleep, sir. So it's a constant. So yeah, I think the visualization piece is that's such a hot topic. It's such an awesome topic. It's not an easy topic. We were just talking about it yesterday or the day before, about the difficulty in doing it. And again, repping it. And again, I've mentioned Tiger so many times, but Tiger said he could not see the ball path in his swing. He couldn't visualize what he wanted to do with his ball, right? And arguably the best of all time. So he had to do it through feel. And so, the visualization piece, some people can really clearly see it, other people can't. But however you integrate it, through through video study, that's a form of visualization, right? And so, yeah, that's an awesome topic. I think it is really a secret weapon that not too many people actually take advantage of.
I think that's awesome. And going back to something we mentioned and about being a good for your partner, and I know you have a chapter on talking about like kind of, how to be a good partner. And I guess my question to both of you is for those out there that have that blind date that enter a tournament and they get matched up with someone and they have very little time, going to you, Jill, first and then Dayne, what would you do or say to a partner that you're playing with for the first time?
I mean, I guess the first thing that I would just want to ask them is, what do you need from your part? Like what's most helpful for you when you're on the court? So things that I like to resolve right away is I like to call shots. That helps me, like a mine, yours, like you, me. Some people I know that makes them crazy. So I want to know that. I want to know, like, are you okay with talking? And then I cross my fingers that the answer is yes. And then I want to talk about how we're going to use our timeouts. Like I want to kind of cover like some basics that I know are going to come up. And then I just want to get a sense of, is there anything for you that's helpful? And then depending if it's, when it's women's, although even with mixed, I also like to do anything that I think is going to require too many words. I like to do at the front end. Like, so say, let's say they have a side they like. I like to just say, so if we get in a spot, I like to change things up sometimes. So if we get stuck, so are you good with that? And it doesn't mean that I've lost confidence in your ability to adapt. Like, I kind of like to lay the groundwork of like, let's experiment when we're out there. We'll go in with a plan. And then the last thing I really like to identify is how much strategic information is helpful for you during the game. So, because I think that everybody has a very different tolerance for that. And I have some partners who really need to kind of be intuitive partners. They need to just kind of play, and they have their own way of doing the strategy. I have other partners where it's really helpful if we pick a spot, if we identify a weakness, if we're talking about that. But so I think it's important to figure that out beforehand so that you don't spin your partner out in the middle of the tournament when you suggest like go for that person's left hip and all of a sudden they're hitting like to the court 2 over, So I think establishing what type of communication, how much communication, what's helpful, is there anything not helpful?
Love
Yeah,
that.
it's really good. I'm done. I can't, there's no way I'm coming on after that.
Yeah, after that.
I've had one pure blind date, and Chris Cargis, senior pro, we actually won TOC. We never played together and we won TOC, having an incredible tournament.
Wow.
And yeah, we've never, and it's in mixed is even more challenging,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think going back as she was answering, I was thinking about like, I think we texted back and forth a little bit, but you can't know until you get on the court, right? And so during our we literally, the morning of, we didn't even play the day before. The morning of the tournament, we walk out and start warming up. And I think I just like, what style of player are you? Are you going to be super aggressive? Do you want, because again, and especially in mixed, right? Like she needs to feel comfortable. She needs to do what she needs to do, right? And I will adapt around what she needs to do. So I just asked her what style she prefers. You know, she's short, so I thought, okay, I'm probably going to cover some lobs, right? And she said she grinded, and so she kind of told me, and then we just kind of had to step out and you just kind of dance that dance, and you figure it out. You kind of constantly are communicating. And for me, again, going back to, I think I'm misunderstood with the scowl and people think my energy, I'm an a-hole and I'm really mean to partners. I think it's really important that I prove to her immediately that I am not that guy and I will support, and you just do you, and I love you for doing you, and we'll just win or lose, don't care. I'm going to be really aggressive and you do your thing and we'll see what happens. Right. And that was the only pure blind date I ever have. I played with partner like last year, Mircha and I played together for the first time after hating each other. After we, it's amazing we could even step on the court. We had a little fun little thing back and forth before we stepped on, and I just remember telling him like, do you. I think that's so I didn't tell him what I needed. He probably already knew the style. I mean, we played against each other a billion times, but we never played with each other. And so I just wanted to make sure that he wasn't trying to do something that he may think I want him to do. And I just kept saying over and over and over, you have this as your superpower, use this as your superpower, and we'll figure out the rest as we go. And we won that tournament because, he played amazing. We kind of connected immediately. He kept telling me, you do you. I kept telling him, you do you. And then all the little micro adjustments we just made as we went. I think what Jill said is so, so important. What do you need, right? How do you play your best? And then I'll adapt. And I think that's really, really important. And until you both figure each other out, I think that's probably how somebody should, how we should start. And if both of you are doing it, then it's a home run.
I
And you gotta
remember.
ask me that question, bro. Even though
I
we're
know.
on dating here,
I got to ask you that while we play together, man. We're like learning, game day learning right now. Man, we should have had this before the weekend.
no, I know.
Our fault.
And then on the flip
man?
side, Dayne, it was amazing your story when you played with Ben Johns. It wasn't a blind date. You knew who you were playing with, and your level of visualization of the roles you would play, except for the very first shot you netted, you said. But
No, the first four shots, maybe.
oh, four shots. Sorry,
in the middle of the net. Yeah.
Okay, so but you also said I got
that's what I
this,
did
though.
yesterday. I hit the first four shots.
Yeah.
Hey, that means I'm in good company. Awesome.
Yeah, I know, but it was, and when you know your partner, even in your opponents, as you said, then it triggers your whole visualization, learning, and imagining, and the outcome, and the level of detail. I did not know that. Yeah, I sometimes visualize one point, but the way you articulated the visualization process of an entire sequence was amazing. And what's left with me was, and and it's always winning. In other words, so I thought that manifestation was, incredible. And congratulations, by the way, on that title and all the others. I just want to say, to both of you, thank you so much for, spending this time with us and with those that you will change, both not only on the pickleball court, but in life. It is, it's refreshing. Andre Agassi, when he announced the deal with, I think it was with Selkirk, but he said, pickleball isn't a sport, it's a community, but it's also a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I feel that you have both done incredible justice to this very transformational sport. And I hope that if your book tour ever comes to Connecticut or New England, that we would gladly join it. And Angelo, back to you.
And promote it. And promote it. You kidding me?
You're too
We're going to
sweet.
be your biggest cheerleaders.
Where are you in Connecticut?
I live in Hamden, which is near Yale, New Haven, and my brother lives in Shelton.
Oh, great.
Delta, Upper Fair. So he's New Haven County. I'm Fairfield County, and it's great too. I work during the pickleball. For me is still a side hustle. That was going to be, my final question. I do not know if time permits,
We have
but
plenty of time as long as you have
All
time.
right,
all right,
go,
the last
go.
question.
One more.
Go for
Last
it.
question.
One
Last
more.
question.
One more. Many people are discovering pickleball as a side hustle, myself included. Angelo, this is his full-time gig, but for me, it's not. It's a side, it's a nights and weekends, weekend warrior. I work at Save the Children, the humanitarian organization, during the week. So it is a matter of life and death, kind of like those legal briefs that you were talking about, Jill, where you have that level of pressure so that pickleball is your release, so you can be a bit more whimsical about it, right? So that is sort of the vibe between Angelo and I. My question about that is, how can you make the side hustle that is pickleball into your main hustle, either economically or with your time, or how have you been able to do that? And I guess that question then would be for, well, prefer both of you, but go ahead.
So I think, man, that's a Gary V question, right? I think number one is patience, right? And I think, and if I steal a chapter from Gary's teachings, it's not beating yourself up over, not over judging yourself, not beating yourself up over, man, I really want to make this a full-time gig. I just don't have the time. Like, do what you can do. I think if you create a plan in your brain about what you want it to look like. I think so I'm going put on my coaching hat here. If you came to me and asked me that question as a client, I would never talk to you about action first. I would talk to you about what that picture looks like in your brain. And I wouldn't even put a timetable on it. I think the timetable is silly. I wouldn't have a 1 year, 2 year, 3, because you can't control that. It's going to kind of manifest when it manifests. But I would ask you what that looks like for you. What is full-time pickleball life, being able to make enough money to support, like, what does that look like? And you don't even have to know, you don't have to know the micro answer. Well, I'm going to teach this many hours, but if you can start really opening up that mental picture in your brain of what it looks like, I think naturally, and I've done this, and this is, I can tell you from experience, I've done it both ways. One way didn't work, which is the action. I'm just going to put in all this action and but I had no vision of what I wanted it to look like, right? And the second I put in the vision of what it looked like and what it was going to bring my family and what it was going to bring me and the freedom and the passion and the love, then all of a sudden, like the steps actually kind of showed up in front of me, right? And so I think the first step is just challenging yourself to lay out. I like to put it on paper. Other people don't need to write it. I think writing it is really helpful. What does that thing look like? What does it feel like? How would it change you? What does that mean? Without a timetable, without a money number, without judgment, and then just work back and start putting in some reps. Like, because there is no one perfect answer for everybody, right? But I think without that vision of what that thing even looks like, I think the action steps are useless, you know?
Yeah.
But I think the passion of it, like, I'm just a huge believer, if I don't get too woo-woo here, I'm just a huge believer in, like, the thing that we gives us goosebumps and that we can't stop thinking about when we go to bed. If we put all of our energy into that picture, stuff just starts to line up for us naturally, as if it's totally, like, not even on our control. This book wasn't a vision of, like, I've been trying to write a book for 10, but, like, the way we did it was not something I imagined. The vision was the book
Partnership.
to add value, to change lives. And then she fell into my life and I fell into her life. And then all these things started. Then we met you, and, you know, but the first step was the written vision of how I want this to be my life, right? And I think if you start there, everything else takes care of itself.
Love that. I thank you both, Dane and Jill. It just you're impacting people more than you know on and off the pickleball court. You're inspiration for us and for others, and just thank you. It was well worth all the sleepless nights, and I can't wait for your pickleball certification course and your next book.
Well, thank you. So I have to say my favorite part about pickleball, and I think
Oh
about
yeah,
every
yes.
single week, is meeting people like you guys. I've been talking to Dane a lot. My favorite type of people are people who are really passionate and passionate about anything. Like I don't care what it could be about, like cup flipping, like whatever it is. But when somebody's really passionate and it goes all in and is like kind of vulnerable with their pursuit of their passion, I think that is the most stimulating kind of person for me to meet. And I'm really appreciative that you had us. I can tell, I love your guys' energy about pickleball and how you are so dedicated to improving both your coaching and your game. And it's like, this is the part that could keep me in the game forever.
She was going to quit until this podcast. She was going to, you saved me.
You saved her until now, and then we took it from there.
That's
With
right.
yeah, okay.
Want to write a book with me?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding me? All of us. All of us. The four of us are gonna do something. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna have to write it down and send it to you guys.
And then for the outro, so for those of you who don't have the copy already, Pickleball Mindset available at all of your favorite bookstores, whether it's online or in person at your local booksellers or Barnes& Noble, or the Audible copy available at Audible, and they read by the authors, not read by an AI or a robot. So pick it up where your books, your local bookstore or Audible. Thank you so much.
We had to audition for our own book. That was terrifying.
Oh, well,
You faked
obviously
it
you
well,
passed the
Dave. You
audition.
faked it well.
You passed the audition. It was
You passed.
wonderful. It was wonderful to listen to, and it's something I'll be bringing to matches and listening to it when I need a boost of inspiration. I'll have my AirPods with me and I'll be listening to chapters about going for it at 10x.
Yes, baby.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you both so much.
This has been amazing. You two are an inspiration. The energy that's coming off of you is freaking incredible. So we thank you. We're super humbled that you would have us.
Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. Bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.